Minutes of this meeting are being kept by the board secretary and will be made available promptly to any member of the public requesting them from the board secretary at 25A Leshen Lane, Hightstown, New Jersey. Minutes will be provided at cost and in accordance with board policy. Are there any board members present who believe this meeting to be in violation of the Open Public Meeting Act? There being none, we may proceed. In compliance with the fire code of the state of New Jersey, I call your attention to the emergency exits for this room, which are located in the back and the sides. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Item C.
Having read the materials received, I move the agenda be approved as submitted.
Second.
Any questions? Poll the board, please.
Ms. Drake?
Yes.
Ms. Lands? Yes. Ms. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Berjoli? On her way. Ms. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso?
Yes. Item D.
Be it resolved that the East Windsor Regional School District may hold 2 closed sessions at this meeting. These closed sessions concern staffing report, HIB report of December 11th, 2023. Minutes of these closed sessions will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Second.
Any questions? Poll the board, please.
Ms. Drake?
Yes.
Ms. Lands?
Yes.
Ms. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, everyone. For the past couple of years, we've had the pleasure during this time of the year to have some musical performances from our students. So tonight, we're continuing in that same tradition. We'll have a couple of performances from our vocal group at the high school, led by Mr. Allen, followed by a few pieces by our instrumental group, led by Mr. Hallett. So, board members, you can stay seated at the dais, and also student reps if you choose, but I think the viewing will be, more advantageous if we transition to the chairs in the auditorium. So with that said, I believe we have Mr. Allen who will lead us. Mr. Allen, give us a few seconds just to transition. All right, and I'll turn it over to you. Thank you. As we're transitioning here, let's just have another round of applause for our very talented students. I want to thank Mr. Hallett, Mr. Allen. Excellent job tonight. Okay, so I'm going to transition right now to the update on the district's equity audit that was really completed during the prior school year, which kind of transitioned into the summer in terms of us gathering the feedback. So tonight is really going to serve as really process findings, recommendations, and there'll be some update regarding some initial steps. And I'll preface it by saying that some of what you'll see tonight in the presentation regarding recommendations, the district has already engaged in some of this work to some degree, but nonetheless, these were the findings that were reported to us after the audit was completed. So I'll transition to the next slide. Thank you. So in terms of just how we got here, so obviously we're in a school district where we have a mission statement that talks about educational achievement for all students, and we mean each and every student. So when we look at academic achievement, obviously we have students progressing at different levels. We recognize that, but we want to feel comfortable and assured that when students are exiting our district in terms of experiencing what we believe we have to offer, we want to be confident that students are achieving at similar levels and having opportunities to kind of achieve at a high level. So purpose of this audit was to really just get a sobering assessment in terms of an outside eye regarding what we have in terms of what's operating within the school district, but also to get a sense of some areas that we could potentially delve a little deeper, but also just to recognize in a more strategic way how can we address some of those issues. So it was honest. It gives us a current reality, but also talks about some suggestions in terms of where we can go. To engage in this process, we did partner with a third party that would be Insight Education Group, who kind of facilitated the work. So just some quick background in terms of our district. It's just kind of a snapshot in terms of where we are, in terms of number of students, our schools. Obviously, we offer an array of educational opportunities. We're diverse, kind of outlines our diversity, some of our diversity there. So that also speaks to the notion of when we think of equity, we're thinking about all students, regardless of demographics, being able to achieve at similar levels. So in addition to that, just this audit was kind of captured using 2021-22 data. As they started last year, they had to have a look back. And I'll talk a little bit in terms of process and things that were reviewed, but this also just gives us a slightly deeper dive into kind of who we are as a school district in terms of that diversity that I just referenced. And this makes us unique, I will say, compared to a number of districts in the state and also the nation, just in terms of the diversity that does exist. We have about 16% Asian population within our district, a little less than 10% African American, approaching 50% Hispanic, and approaching a little over 25% white. In addition to that, you'll see that we have about a 16% percentage of English learners, and also about 30%. And these numbers will they may be slightly different today, as we're about almost 2 years removed, but about a 30% eligibility for free and reduced lunch, and almost a 14% students with disabilities. So the process that Insight engaged in to complete this audit was really focused on trying to get a sense of district policy, district beliefs, practices as it relates to equity. So some of what was reviewed, as you can see, graduation data, discipline data, obviously student achievement data. They also reviewed some district documents, whether that's policies, procedures, what have you. And then the human element was connected to some stakeholder surveys and also some focus group sessions and also individual interviews with specific staff members. So in the process, we listened to, as you can see, families, community, faculty, administration, but also students. And that student piece was directly connected to our high school student population. So the Insight Equity Framework, as you can see here, they have 5 domains, 5 pillars that kind of guide the work. Starts with their structures and systems, resources, culture, community, racial equity in the educator workforce, professional learning and personal growth, and curriculum, instruction, and learning. So just to give you a sense of where we are, there were a number of, obviously we talked about a survey. This is just giving you a snapshot of a kind of them gathering some survey data to give you just a sense of, and I'll talk a little bit about this as we transition into the presentation. This question in the survey was focused around perceptions of equity and really asking the question along the lines of, do you believe that the district has a clear and shared equity definition? So kind of going from the bottom to the top, and the green obviously is, an affirmation regarding that. So as you can see here, those 3 pieces of data there, the bottom bar is reflective of district leaders, school leaders. The middle section is connected to district and school staff. And then the one at the top, family and caregivers. So as you can see, just the perception of equity and kind of a clear sense of what that is in the district. There's obviously a difference between district leadership transitioning to families and caregivers as it relates to agreeing or strongly agreeing. In terms of the numbers of surveys, as you can see there, we surveyed 300 faculty, 40 families, 800 students. And in terms of focus groups, smaller number, but the focus groups were either group-driven, included parents, staff members, district leadership. And as I said, they were either small group or individual in terms of gathering some feedback and perceptions. So in terms of the findings, And this is, the board, you have the full document, the full report. I'm just going to I pulled out a few aspects of what was captured in each of the domains, and it's kind of structured around findings, and we'll transition to some recommendations. But in this first domain, discussing system structures. Systems, structures, and resources. So a couple of things that stood out. First being that there was a general consensus that in our district, there is a commitment to equitable policies and practices. Also, the notion of data and how that's utilized within the district, that seemed to be some consensus regarding efforts connected to data-driven decision-making. So that was reaffirming. But also something that was identified was a lack of a strategic plan. So what we noticed also that there seemed to be a sense that of the voice of stakeholders in the development of a plan was lacking, and kind of just having an emphasis and a structure to support equity within the district was something that appeared to be unclear. I will state that for this year, we do have a district goal in terms of engaging in strategic planning. So that is something that are in the process of addressing more globally. There also was some feedback regarding funding formula. I think one of the questions, when we talk about equity, is almost trying to allocate resources in a way that we think is fair, but also recognizing that depending on students' needs, making sure the students have the resources and funding necessary to address those needs. So in terms of gathering the feedback, there seemed to be some uncertainty in terms of the formula utilized to fund schools. We typically operate on a per pupil formula, but that was something that surfaced in terms of not being quite sure. Continuing with findings, the next domain discusses culture and community. So something that emerged was the fact that restorative practices did not seem to be an evident component of our disciplinary process. There was also some feedback through the surveys and the focus groups, especially with our, and this is actually interesting in terms of differences. So there was a concern that discipline was not handled consistently throughout the district. So, and I'll frame it in a similar vein in terms of the question regarding perceptions of equity. Feedback from district administration or from a building standpoint as well was that was more of a belief that discipline was handled fairly. And then that differed when we got the feedback from students who cited some examples of how they perceive things to be. And then it was a slight difference as it relates to the family caregiver feedback, who also questioned whether or not they felt like discipline was something that was handled fairly across the district. And I think some of that was more anecdotal, but still, it was still a felt sense of perception that we received. You just back up just for a little bit? Thank you. So this is the third bullet, talks a little bit about outreach communication that the district engages in. But I think there was a sense that it felt like it may be one way versus kind of like a back and forth sense of communication. So yes, the district is keeping folks updated, and but there was a felt need based on the feedback for some additional engagement between the district and the community. Thank you, Aaron. So in terms of equity in the workforce, this is the notion of trying to have a school district environment that's reflective to some degree of the students that we're educating. So if you go back to one of those earlier slides, we talked about kind of the snapshot of the demographics that we see within the district. And obviously, it's not unique to our district, but we are in a process where we're definitely cognizant of the fact that we want more representation that reflects our student body. The feedback from the audit indicated that they did not identify strategic or targeted efforts on our part to engage in that recruitment. We definitely are cognizant of us trying to engage in those recruitment efforts, but based on the audit in terms of the documents they reviewed, they indicated they needed to see a more overt sense of what that represented. So we realized that we don't have anywhere close to a workforce that mirrors our student population. And this kind of just gives you a comparison between 2020 and 2022. And they're just using white students as just the barometer for that, and then connecting that to the administration and managers and what that population reflects. So we realized that this is something that was not alarming in terms of information. We were very cognizant of that. And this is something that we've been engaged in trying to enhance, I would say, for the past few years. Professional learning, some feedback indicated that stakeholders did talk about and reference the work that the district had engaged in regarding equitable grading practices, book studies, trainings, and other activities to increase awareness. In terms of the feedback regarding professional learning, once again, we had some different perceptions based on the stakeholder group, with leaders having a more favorable view in terms of the work we're doing. And I'll just say that in terms of the work under the equity umbrella, I would acknowledge that a lot of the work that we've engaged in as a district for the past 3, 4, 5 years, for the most part, I would agree that it's been more administratively or district leadership oriented in terms of us creating some self-awareness and engaging in some professional learning, both in the district and outside the district. And we have been cognizant of the fact that we wanted to more intentionally transition that work to the building level. One could argue that COVID somewhat got in the way, but I don't want to make that an excuse. But I do believe that our next step clearly would be engaging more systematically in terms of having that work occur within buildings. Now, the third bullet talks about an exception, and there was some agreement here where it appears that when asked about the integration of equity-focused content throughout the professional learning schedule, leaders and staff had similar levels of agreement. So the survey tool was framed in a way where there was a Likert scale, 1 through 5. The Insight Education indicated that the way they frame it is that anything that scored less than a 3 in terms of feedback would be an area of focus. So there was some commonality. When that question was scored across multiple stakeholder groups, it came in slightly below a 3. So there seemed to be some consensus regarding the notion of the integration of equity-focused content. District leaders just talked about using, obviously, feedback from this process to inform our professional learning moving forward. So in addition to that, this is just some survey data. It's kind of reinforcing what I just shared. And the first item discusses the notion of resources. So asking, whether our district provides the necessary resources, potential funding materials, follow-up, et cetera, to implement equity-focused initiatives. So the feedback from district and school leaders, about 67% agreed or strongly agreed on that. District and school staff, noticeably reduced level of agreement regarding that. So you can see the scoring there, 2.92 for district and school leaders, and a 2.38 for district and school staff. So it's just something to, obviously, for us to be more curious about and dig into. Next item talks about the integration that I just shared before, and here's the data that kind of just supports that. So this is where there was some similarity between the district and school leaders as well as staff in terms of that, being close to 70% for leaders and slightly over 60% for district and school staff. So the third one references professional learning, evidence-based research-based training to support teachers in meeting the learning needs of all students. If you look at the leader feedback, it's close to 3, about 2.9. So we have about 83% of our leaders agreeing or strongly agreeing, compared to about 60% of our district and school staff agreeing or strongly agreeing. So once again, there was some, for me, it was, you can look at it a few different ways. One, it could be folks who are closest to students have a different perspective in terms of what they're dealing with on a daily basis versus someone who's not as close to students on a daily basis, right? So I just think it means that we need to obviously engage in some more collaboration to make sure that what we think we're putting forth is being received in a way that we think is most meaningful from our practitioners who are working with our students on a daily basis. Curriculum. So you've heard this before, but we do have gaps that exist. And we've identified, the data tells us that the gaps in terms of subgroup populations often exist between students who are identified as Hispanic or Latino and peers of a different ethnicity, as well as students deemed to be economically disadvantaged, an English language learner, which is now known as multilingual learner, or a student identified with a disability. So in math, the gap was also pronounced between students identified as Black or African American and peers of a different ethnicity. The feedback also obviously gathered, somewhat promising, that our four-year graduation rate for the class of 2022 exceeded the rate at the state level in all categories, which is good. Continuing in that vein, in terms of them just referencing academic achievement, graduation rates vary depending on student demographics. And there is a gap, albeit a small one. So in terms of you can see there the district graduation rate compared to the state, as we talked about, being slightly higher. If you look at the Hispanic or Latino graduation rate compared to Asian, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander, so it was 89.4 compared to 100%, and about 98 compared to our white students. Our economically disadvantaged student graduation rate's about 91%. Our students with disabilities, as you can see, is about 85%. Our English language learners or our multilingual learners, you can see that percentage for the graduation rate was about 81%. So it also indicates here that that group has the highest dropout rate of all groups, with nearly 10% not continuing. So just some digging a little bit deeper into, obviously, that journey, and obviously students coming to us from different places and different levels of preparation, but nonetheless, when we're talking graduation data for the class of 2022, those are some of the trends. So in addition, I talked about the ratings in terms of survey data. This is just some feedback from students. So for the student portion, there was a 3.1 average agreement to the prompt. I have access to courses of my choosing, to include advanced and elective courses, where 93.4% of respondents either strongly agreed or agree, which was encouraging feedback. That was gathered from our student feedback from the high school, which was good to hear and somewhat reaffirming, because we do want to make sure we're being intentional regarding opportunities, access, but also some electives that we think are relevant and meaningful. Student survey respondents also indicated a high score as it relates to, once again, kind of an access and opportunity question regarding access to chorus band, as we saw tonight, sports, STEM, student leadership, other special programs. So that also yielded some pretty positive feedback from students, student feedback. So that was encouraging to get that feedback from our students. So some recommendations. So this is for the first domain, structured systems and resources. So first thing is to develop a district equity team, kind of to serve in an advisory capacity to ensure that those practices under the equity umbrella are organized and carried out throughout the district. Another recommendation is to use that team to develop an equity plan that includes a vision of equity, definition of equity, and to also engage in kind of that routine review of data, goals for progress, and in ways in which we're measuring that progress towards said goals. In addition to that, we want to make sure that there's some sense of what that series or that commitment to professional learning will look like for stakeholders. And connected to that, it's just once that district team is established, kind of creating a sense of closer to home, building related needs, supporting each school in developing their own school-based equity team. And once again, I'm just giving you a snapshot. It's not an exhaustive list here. So to continue with some recommendations, culture community, just talks about just engaging in, and this is a little bit more so related to just kind of gathering that stakeholder feedback as it relates to having a collective sense of what we believe those outcomes should be for all students and really prioritizing a sense of belonging and agency, regardless of who students are within the school community. Another piece of feedback surfaced regarding behavior and some positive behavioral supports, and also restorative practices as it relates to how we are engaging in holding students accountable in a way that we believe is not jeopardizing or impacting negatively their educational experience. So equity in the workforce, recommendation was for us to engage in kind of just actualizing that talent recruitment and a strategy within the district. And once again, this has been something that's been clearly an area of focus for us and a priority area for us. But nonetheless, this was a piece of feedback we received, and it's trying to tap into that talent pipeline, obviously to ensure that we can take advantage of some of those career opportunities and advancements through the level of equity in our district. So continuing with that, it talks about once we've engaged in that level of recruitment, placing an emphasis on retention, but also potentially advancement, right? Creating opportunities for folks to want to remain, feel valued, and feel a part of the school community. Professional learning. As I said before, key recommendation was to develop and implement a plan for a district-wide, consistent set of professional learning experiences with a focus on equity. It also talks about providing members of that district equity team with opportunities for those individuals to enhance their level of understanding and awareness so they can also support their colleagues in terms of engaging in workshop opportunities or just embedded professional learning. And it also talks about recommending, I'm not sure if they were trying to sell this for themselves, but they did indicate that we may want to consider partnership with an external vendor who's kind of skilled and experienced in that area to do some hand-holding to assist the district in kind of developing a multi-year approach to ensure that it doesn't just become like a drive-by scenario as it relates to, the buzzword of the day, and to have some sustainability. From a curriculum standpoint, some recommendations, and once again, a number of these areas we've engaged in this process to some degree. This talks about some internal data alignment, data evaluation, and systemic review with a clear emphasis on the closing of achievement gaps. I would say that our administrative team spends a great amount of time looking at student performance data as it relates to all students achieving, but clearly with an eye on ensuring that if we see that there are some identified gaps, what are we doing to try to support teachers to further meet the needs of our students. Talks about, tiered interventions. And I'd say that we have a process clearly in district connected to identifying students who may present need, whether it's 1, 2, or more grade levels below in terms of academic performance, and engaging in some tiered interventions. We operate from that place as it currently stands. I don't think it hurts to revisit, some of our existing structures to determine what we believe we could potentially do differently. Talks about data review at buildings. For the past several years, we've engaged in having a data team goal to kind of strengthen and have further ownership of student performance data at the building level, and ultimately it should rest at the classroom level with the teacher who is interfacing and teaching and supporting those students on a daily basis. So we'll continue to do that. The recommendation based on the equity audit, though, was once again having that focus on looking to mitigate and close those gaps with students who we believe are in those underrepresented groups. In addition, what do we have here? So it talks about, and this is something that we've also had an awareness of and actions related to, just kind of expanding content curricula. That includes materials, but also placing an emphasis on inclusion and equity. Talks about developing a plan to ensure consistent implementation of curricula and accelerate access to advanced courses. So this is, once again, something that the district is very conscientious of and has engaged in that work prior to my arrival here. But yes, in terms of the notion of all students having opportunities for rigorous content, we want to make sure that we're creating, and it's not creating pathways and in the process preventing other students from having access to those pathways. It means opening pathways for more students to engage in educational experiences and opportunities that we believe are advanced where appropriate. Also recommends developing, revising curricula based on findings, working towards kind of diversifying the representation of prospective authors and characters. And oftentimes that will fall under the language arts umbrella, but just being conscientious of that. Our district is engaged in that work already, but that surfaced as a recommendation, and it almost was somewhat reaffirming in terms of the work that our librarians engage in addition to our supervisors, who are also gathering feedback from teachers, ensuring that we are looking to use literacy as, you know, mirrors and windows in terms of experiences. So some next steps, and like I said, this is not an exhaustive list, but just some initial considerations. Obviously, we're in the process of reviewing the information from the audit and engaging with various stakeholders. Obviously, tonight serves as an opportunity to engage with the board, but also the community. At our district leadership team upcoming meeting, we'll dig into this some more, and engage in terms of like where we are, where we need to go. And I want to make sure that the piece that resonated for me was that I don't want this conversation to just be housed with our leadership team. It needs to be shared with our teachers and practitioners who are in classrooms and working with students on a day-to-day basis. So I want to make sure that we are collectively experiencing where we think we need to go. As I said before, establishing that district equity team. That team will be comprised of a multitude of folks, but definitely want to make sure we have, I'm just using the term teacher, teacher representation at each school. We did have a backup. We did have a team, district equity team. Erin Servillo, assistant superintendent, kind of served as the chairperson of that team, and that was all administrators. This year, we did identify some teachers to be a part of that. We were in a bit of a holding pattern because we were waiting for the feedback from the audit, but in short order, we will be reestablishing some invitations and setting a time up for folks to come together. And as I said before, using that team to develop that plan that will kind of steer the work. I should kind of qualify that a little bit to say, as we're about to engage in the strategic planning process, that will be similar in terms of determining where we are as a district and where we're looking to go in the next 5 years as a district in terms of establishing some goals and some pillars. I anticipate the feedback from this audit to dovetail and be intertwined to some degree with that work. I don't want it to kind of be working in a parallel world. So I envision that that's the direction that we'll move forward in. Okay. So I'll stop there and take any questions.
I have a few. Thank you, first of all. It was interesting. So you said there was 300 faculty, 40 families, and 800 students for the perceptions of equity information. Is there a breakdown of what demographics those people are? To make sure, that we're asking the people who are the breakdown of the schools.
Well, I think, I can gather that. I'm not sure if I think we on the survey tool, I think one of the introductory questions was a demographic question. So I believe from a survey standpoint it was.
Okay, yeah,
And we didn't do it strategically up front. It was just like gather, right? But part of the survey questions, the introduction, I think, was kind of
Okay.
pulling a little bit of that.
yeah. All right, yeah, I guess that would be interesting, because I think that's something that the district has always needed, just representation of who's actually in the school. If you just look at the board, it's never been correct, right? So I think seeing what the data was of the people who were actually asked would be interesting. And then what is considered a restorative practice? I know restorative justice is like if a student, clog the toilet intentionally, they then have to help clean or like write a apology letter to the custodian who has to clean it up. What's allowed? What is a restorative practice?
Well, I think, a restorative practice really focuses on kind of, repairing whatever occurred. That could be a dispute with another student. That could be an interaction with a teacher. It doesn't mean that the student does not get consequences and is not held accountable, but we want to focus on recognizing that it's an action, and that action may not define the student, and we want to make sure that we can find ourselves continuing to move forward, obviously with that student taking some level of accountability and responsibility. But it's driven by the notion of belonging and trying to limit, outside of things like, right, physical violence, right, threats, weapon possession, all those things that you just can't have. Trying to, for example, I'll say, trying to steer away from, I'm going to say, excluding students from their educational experience for something like, talking back. Not inappropriate, but we just have to determine. Sometimes, we find ourselves in a situation where, a student may find themselves escalating depending on the level of consequence that was assigned, and we find that the student's been suspended. And then when you really look at kind of like how we got to that point, is this something that we could have handled in a way that the child could have been in school? Still had something that was temporarily, taken away, but with the notion that we're not looking to leap towards exclusion to solve the issue. So in terms of specific restorative practices, I don't want to I don't want you to think we're going to have kids, mopping the cafeteria floor, right?
I didn't say I didn't like it.
But one could argue if you made a mess, then you should clean the mess up,
Yeah.
right? So.
All right, thank
All right.
you. And then I guess the last one is, so the district equity team, you said it would be representative of in each school. But then going back to the very first slide of the biggest gap between the perceptions of equity being administration and then, the next level of teachers, but they'll be on the equity team. But then what about the community? So how is that big gap going to be
Right
met?
now, I think in terms of where we are, because I want to kind of just move in a way that we think is manageable and realistic. I think board member representation would be kind of the community component at this stage. And I'll preface that by saying that as we engage in the strategic planning process, there will be parental feedback, consistent parental feedback in terms of those focus groups that will be tied into that. So I do believe that there will be avenues for, in addition to board member voice, parental voice as well.
Thank you.
I can hardly hear you, Tina. So I can hear you. I can hear you.
In a similar vein as to the samples, I'm looking at the sample size, it's a fairly small sample size for our district, and I just had concerns that maybe we missed some people who should have a voice that is harder to communicate with. Am I getting that wrong?
Thank you, Paul. Okay.
What sample size are you referring to?
The 300 faculty, 40 families, 800 students out of our 5,000 students and those families. It seems to be a small sample size.
You think
So-
300 staff is small?
Not the staff, I'm talking about our students, our
Okay.
community.
800 students, it's a pretty, that's half of our high school student body.
Okay. All right, if we're talking the students, we're just in the high school. I'm just concerned that in bringing the community in, that we are hitting those diverse, like our multi-language families and our families
Gonna
with
try
disabilities.
everything we can to
and
do that. Yes, indeed.
I know we do try.
Yeah.
So just
We'll
keep that in
continue.
mind, that as we're going forward, to continue doing that. Yeah, and a lot of the things you answered in the last slide, so I think we'll just go, if you can, what is our timeline of implementing the equity?
As soon as possible. We're going to look to because we have a framework of a team already, but based on this feedback, we may need to make some subtle adjustments
Okay,
to the configuration. So we want to get it going this year.
okay.
Yeah.
And if we could like update in a few
Of
months
course, of
again
course.
and stay on top of this. And I do appreciate that it will be part of, intertwined with that strategic planning. That makes sense. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Next, we'll be moving on to our student representative report.
Thank you. Early last week, the grade level town hall meetings were conducted to recap the first marking period. The assistant principal spoke with their students regarding conduct and policies and commended those who received honor roll and high honor roll. We are pleased to say that each class required multiple slides to list all of the names. The class councils also took the opportunity to announce some of their future events and fundraisers. Some to look forward to are the senior classes movie night on December 21st, the Valentine's Day dance on February 9th, and the ice skating night on February 26th.
Student Council was also given the opportunity to speak at the meetings, where we were able to mention our upcoming holiday drive-thru on December 14th. Families can come in their cars and drive through holiday displays set up by various clubs along the front sidewalk of the high school. Our clubs will be handing out candies and treats for those who attend. It is a highly anticipated event, as last year was canceled due to the weather.
Another event taking place on the 14th is DECA's Cupcake Decorating Night. Partnered with Master Chef Purvi Dogra, the club has brought together a fun event for the students of Hightstown. This is a unique opportunity that the students can enjoy with their families as well, and we are glad to see the club taking initiative to keep their members engaged.
HHS students have been amazing at taking up their own initiatives and creating a space to offer opportunities for themselves when they don't exist. Starting this year, a variety of new clubs have been started at HHS, including the Mental Health Advocacy Club, Speaking for Success, and a yoga club. Another new addition is the Esports Club, which recently had its first meeting. They plan to begin competing in the spring. We can't wait to see how they shape our school in the next few years.
On December 7th, the HHS Instrumental Music Program had their winter concert, which was a delight to listen to, and we can't wait to hear more from them throughout this year. Next Tuesday, the 19th, we will also be having the HHS Choral Concert, which you saw bits of before, so make sure to attend and support our music program.
The winter sports season has begun, with the swim team having their first meet against Nottingham last Thursday. Other sports begin competing soon, and we will share their accomplishments as the season progresses.
On December 20th, HHS students will have the opportunity to take the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, or the ASVAB, to determine their potential in the armed forces. We wish the students who are taking this good luck and encourage them in the step towards their future.
As you may remember from a previous meeting, we mentioned our plans to set up a suggestion box for Hightstown students to directly voice their concerns. We are pleased to announce that the form went live last week, and we discussed some of the first responses with Mr. Vincent earlier today. The suggestion box is a Google form accessible to students through their Google Classroom, QR codes around the school, and links on social media. We hope that this will go a long way in bettering the school for many years to come.
That concludes our report for tonight. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. I just had 2 questions. What was the Christmas lights at the high school, is that the 14th?
Yes, it will be on the 14th.
And then the suggestion box, is that just at the high school?
So yeah, we're centralizing it within the high school for now, but if lower school student councils want to take that into consideration as well, like, we're open to be talking to them.
That's great, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Thank you very much. Now we move on to superintendent report.
Good evening again, everyone. A couple of updates for tonight. As always, I do want to thank our student representatives. Excellent report this evening. Very informative, as usual. I also want to just thank again Mr. Allen and Mr. Hallett for tonight's performances. Just kind of just showcasing some of our student talent. And we have a student in particular here tonight who was doing double duty. And that individual was playing the drums. But if you look to the back of the auditorium right now, he's put the drumsticks down, and he is now on the camera for the live stream. So let's give it up to Jesse, please. That's what I'm talking about. Love the versatility, Jesse. In terms of a couple of updates for this time of the year, the Governor's Educator of the Year recognition takes place annually around this time. Obviously, it's an opportunity for the Department of Education to recognize and highlight our educators and staff members who've gone above and beyond. So we recently, and we do that by seeking feedback and nominating individuals at each of our schools. We do participate in that. And I think it's something that we shouldn't take for granted. So tonight, I do want to just give a quick shout out and thank the individuals at each of our schools, and that's kind of focused on a teacher of the year and an educational support professional or assistant at each of our schools. So we are going to formally honor them, invite them to a board meeting. I believe it's the second board meeting in February 26th, I believe that is. But I do want to just share their names tonight. Hopefully I can pronounce them correctly. The first one's a challenge. I'm going to be completely honest with you. So I'll start with Perry L. Drew School. We have Caitlin Mladenitz, all right, Teacher of the Year. I think Caitlin was married recently. She had a different last name before? Ms. Chappelle, could you help me out, please? Thank Lucio, that's right. Malatness. Sorry if you're watching Caitlin, my apologies. Renee Flagger was the Educational Assistant of the Year at Drew. For Ethel McKnight School, Kelly Sosinski was Teacher of the Year. Kate Murphy, Educational Support Professional. Okay, all right. Give it up. At Walter C. Black School, Mrs. Hallett, Teacher of the Year. Mrs. Crispino, Educational Support Professional of the Year. Grayson Rogers, we have Mrs. LeBou, Teacher of the Year, and Ms. Torres, Educational Support Professional of the Year. Mulvin H. Krebs Middle School, so Mrs. Karen Cook, Teacher of the Year. Mrs. Alba Alvarez, Educational Assistant of the Year. And here at Hightstown High School, Ms. Vanessa Rosa, Teacher of the Year, and Ms. Elizabeth Bosch Lara, Educational Service Professional of the Year. So let's give it up. Give them a round of applause. Congratulations again. As I said, we'll formally recognize them in a couple of months, but definitely appreciate these very dedicated professionals and what they do for our students each day. Just a couple of things I want to mention also at this time of the year. So I've mentioned in recent weeks the notion of NJQSAC, which is the New Jersey Quality Single Accountability Continuum. Every school district in the state engages in this process, which is really a self-monitoring tool to ensure that we're providing a thorough and efficient educational process within the district. It does not happen every year, fortunately. It's a cycle, about a 3-year cycle. So we were engaged in the process this year We are scheduled to kind of upload our documents on December 15th. And those documents are typically framed around, 5 key components. Talked about them before: instruction and program personnel, fiscal management, operations, and governance. There are district performance reviews, or DPRs. I don't want to bore people. But really, we're prompted to review those DPRs within each of those areas and engage in a self-assessment. And then the Department of Education via the county level, and we also upload documents to provide evidence for how we've rated ourselves. And then the county department reviews those, and we'll engage in questions, follow-up visits, or what have you. So that process is underway. Tonight on the agenda, I'm asking the board to just approve the DPRs as we've scored them, so therefore they can be submitted to the DOE later this week. The one area I did point out was that the instruction and program DPR, each of those areas are out of 100, and you kind of like, there's a formula there, and you kind of score yourself. The one exception is instruction and program. It will be out of 100, but right now we could only score it up to 40, because the additional 60 points will be driven by the county score, and that's going to be based on really student achievement, based on our state assessment data, some MSN, SGP, and a few other things. So that piece right now, we're kind of capped at 40, and then there'll be an additional scoring that will occur. I referenced strategic planning in the presentation earlier this evening. It's a district goal for this year, obviously, in terms of us establishing some direction for the upcoming 5-year cycle. The starting point or kickoff for that will be a steering committee meeting, which will occur tomorrow afternoon here, not here, but in district. We are partnering with New Jersey School Boards Association to engage in the strategic planning process. So we will meet with a representative from New Jersey School Boards tomorrow, and that will serve as an opportunity really just to kind of review the process that we'll engage in this year. If you recall, that process typically involves, similar to the equity audit, but a little bit more ongoing and more comprehensive, and should have a wider reach. But ultimately, it will seek to determine kind of where we are as a school district, kind of like the state of the state. And then we're going to talk about where we would like to go in terms of establishing some priority areas. So this process is really driven by identifying what we believe is most important at this moment, and establishing some goal areas that support those beliefs, and an opportunity to gauge and measure and assess the progress we're making towards achieving those goals. So the process by design is seeking to, and Tina, you talked about trying to make sure that our outreach or our feedback or input is reflective of our community, and I completely concur with that. So this will be an opportunity for every stakeholder in the district to have voice, whether that voice will be provided via a survey. Sometimes I think we get overwhelmed with surveys, but there will be opportunities for in-person focus group participation. From my experience, the focus group dynamic with stakeholders is something where we're going to ask folks to be a part of this, but there will be some expectation of commitment. So there may be about 4 to 5 sessions where we're asking folks to, as best they can, agree to be a part of that, to kind of steer the process as we move forward. So tomorrow will be kind of just more of a planning meeting to determine where we're going. This will be something that we plan to launch in January, and hopefully we may have some communication regarding outreach, recruitment for stakeholder input prior to winter break. In closing, just as a reminder, as we approach, as we exit out of Thanksgiving and transition towards our winter holiday season, the second of our 3 homework holidays will take place during winter break, and the concept behind that is to have our breaks for the most part, serve as breaks, especially when we're, connected to family. Sometimes there may be some religious observances that occur, and we don't want to have students kind of preoccupied and families preoccupied with engaging in homework during those times. So to have some consistency regarding that, winter break will serve as our second homework holiday, and that just reflects that there will not be any at-home work assigned from December 22nd through January 2nd, 2024. And that also includes not having students returning on January 2nd to take a test or quiz on that first day back. And with that said, look, as we're not going to have a meeting prior to winter break, so I do wish the board and everyone here and at home a very peaceful and healthy holiday season, and looking forward to 2024. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mark. Does anyone have any questions for Mark? Then we will move on. First opportunity for board member comments. Are there any board members who wish to make a comment? No. If there's none, we'll move on. First opportunity for public comment.
Ed Hirschman, Hightstown High School Parents Association. Any phone? No phone. Folder? No. Folder, no phone. 6 months ago, I came before the board requesting a fair contract for both the EWEA and the EWRSSA. In September, I came before you again to request a fair contract for the EWRSSA. It's now December, and I am still requesting a fair contract for EWRSSA. It's been a year and a half. EWEA is settled, EWRSSA has not. We are talking about maintenance and facilities. The folks in Carhartts, green shirts, the ones that keep the HVAC running, paint, electric, cut the grass, keep the buildings operating. We're talking about educational assistance, dealing with kids with IEPs, essential to kids with IEPs. We're talking about the bus drivers, the folks that see our kids first in the morning, that see them the last at the end of the day, that get them to and from school safely, that get them to and from field trips, athletics, and pretty much any other travel that they do on a school bus. We're talking about the secretaries that keep the administration running, because without them, I think our administration would be totally lost. And near and dear to me personally, with both the Parents Association and the Music Boosters, we're talking about the custodians. The first in the building, the last out of the building, the folks that keep these places clean, the folks that get called when there's a stomach bug running through the building to come and clean up puke every 5 minutes. And personally, the folks that found my daughter's fingertip when she amputated it 12 years ago. It wasn't a teacher, it wasn't an administrator, it wasn't the nurse, it was a custodian that found her fingertip and got it on ice so that it could be reattached, okay? These are the folks that keep these buildings running. They're behind the scenes. With the exception of the EAs and the bus drivers, they're not really dealing with the kids. But without them, this district would be in very bad shape. They deserve a fair contract. The time has come. It has been long enough. You need to settle. Thank you.
But before we continue with public comment, I want to make sure everyone has ample time to speak. Paul, do we need to, are we going to have to? Well, I think we're going to have to. I think we need to remind everyone how much time we have, and then how much time do we have for public comment?
So by our board policy, we've set aside at least 20 minutes for public comment, with each member receiving, each person to speak receiving 3 minutes. Also in the policy, I know some people kind of go over that, but what our policy says is that if you exceed your 3 minutes, you can come back, but everyone has to have an opportunity to speak first.
And if we needed to extend the time, we can make a motion to extend the time for a certain period, correct?
We have done that in the past, yes.
Okay. Go ahead, thanks.
I am Kevin McGill, President of the East Windsor Regional Supportive Staff Association. I provide technological support in this district for students and colleagues. I am here this evening representing the 248 members of our association. Our bargaining unit includes custodians, buildings and grounds personnel, bus drivers, van attendants, mechanics, educational assistants, secretaries, information technology, our heating and cooling experts, HVAC, electricians. We are the people you depend upon to ensure the buildings, grounds, transportation, climate control, lights, running water are all operational so our students can receive an education. I would like our negotiating team to please stand up and remain standing. I would like our executive board members to please stand up and remain standing. All other members of our association, please stand up and remain standing. The pictures of individuals you see represent our members who wanted to be here, are currently working, and could not be in attendance. Other members of our bargaining unit are in attendance this evening, and they may be speaking as individuals during public comments. However, as the president, I am the only speaker this evening authorized to represent the East Windsor Regional Supportive Staff Association. Since July 1, 2022, we have been working under an expired contract. We have been negotiating with the board's team and are extremely close to a settlement. Unfortunately, we ran into a couple glitches, and those have conceptually been resolved. The outstanding issue is an increase in salary compensation. I am sure no one is surprised this has not been resolved. We are very close on that issue, but no, I want to share why we have taken such a strong position. We have substantially decreased our position over time. We believe the service and support we provide is worth more than our current position. It is not our intention to decrease it further. While the compensation the EWEA members, our teachers, receive is near the top for the districts in Mercer County. The people I represent are not compensated near the top in Mercer County school districts. We gave our members the salary increases EWRSD currently has on the table and compared it with the 2022-2023 salaries received by our counterparts in other Mercer County districts. Our members in maintenance do well when compared to others in the county.
30
Historically,
seconds, please.
this district has recognized their professional worth. Our members, our IT people, are currently in the county average range. Our secretaries, out of 8 districts, they will be number 8 or 7, second lowest at best. Our custodians are running at average or just below when compared to other county districts. Our educational assistants, when first employed, are good, but then fall way behind and land at the bottom. And
Time.
did you... Right here.
My name is Jocelyn Williams. I reside at 432 Dutch Neck Road. I am the high school library secretary. I'm going to continue and conclude for Kevin. Our educational assistants, when first employed, are good, but then fall way behind and land at the bottom. And did you know many of them are kicked, bitten, hit on a daily basis, to the extent that the district provides our EAs with padded protective gear for their limbs. Our positions are more difficult to compare due to the variations in their job responsibilities from one district to another. But for the most part, while you recognize the value of the EWEA members, you send a different message to the members of our bargaining unit. We cannot negotiate your respect. We cannot negotiate that you recognize our contribution and value to our district. I stand before you to remind you that we are not second-class citizens. The services we provide to the district enables the EWEA members and administrators to provide an education to our students in a safe, clean, and efficient building. We simply are not willing to agree to a contract that moves us further behind. It is demoralizing for us to watch you value the EWEA members and to value what we provide for the success of our district. We'd like to resolve our contract and sign a memorandum of agreement in 2023. I thank you for your attention this evening, and we urge you to carefully reconsider our compensation position on the table.
Hello, my name is Ellen Ogans. I live at 145 Ryan Court in Monroe Township. I'm an elementary special education teacher at the McKnight School and the president of the East Windsor Education Association. Look at your watch. Look at your watch. If you're not wearing a watch, look at your clock. See the time? The time is correct. Your watch is working. Now imagine lifting the face of the watch off. What do you see? Gears, cogs, wires, loops, and all kinds of stuff, right? If any of those parts were missing, your watch wouldn't work. It would be dead. Compare this to the work of the district support staff, EWRSD. From the outside, our district runs like a finely tuned machine. That is only possible because of the face behind the East Windsor Regional School District. The bus drivers, first and last smile of our children's day. Technology, the folks who keep technology running, the folks who made instruction during COVID even possible. Same for maintenance department. Any problem is handled way before you ever hear about it. We have heat, air conditioning, working bathrooms, and even lights, thanks to our maintenance department. It's the custodians who provide a safe, sanitary environment for our students and do it with a smile. It's our educational assistants, the right and left hand for teachers. Whether it's to wipe away a tear or read with a child, they are always there. As a special education teacher for over 35 years, I know firsthand that I would be lost without educational assistance. You even have a truant officer and a graphic technician. And then there are the school secretaries. Anyone who has ever been in school knows that they are the people who really run the school, who know where everything is, who every student is, who are the OG. So like a watch that can't function without its inner workings, a district can't function without its inner workings, the support staff. The district's success is dependent upon everyone who works silently, performing their jobs every day, the people who are the face of the watch. The people behind the face of the watch. EWEA's contract and EWRSD's contract expired at the same time, and though, albeit a year late, we were able to settle just before the end of last year. That didn't happen for EWRSD, and they continue to work under an expired contract. We need all of our EWRSD members. We need to keep them here in our district. We don't want them to leave. Now, you know the bump in the road of negotiations is usually salary. This is what I know. EWEA has almost 600 members. 1% increase for the 600 members was $410,325. In EWRSD, 1% is $82,000. My point is, when EWEA receives a salary increase, it has a significant increase upon the district's budget. We recognize that, and when we negotiate, we appreciate what we get.
30 seconds, please.
EWEA's 1%, $410,000. Support staff's 1%, $82,000. Simply put, the difference for a 0.2% increase for EWRSD is $16,506. That's it. I have seen GoFundMe's on Facebook raising more money than that. As president of EWEA, speaking for all of my members, we know they are worth it. We know they are indispensable. We know that the clock would be dead without them. So here I am again, 6 months later, imploring you to do the right thing. Give the district support what they deserve. Thank you. Oh, I'm out of breath from running.
Good evening. I'm Renee Ragno. I reside at 181 Windmore Drive in East Windsor. I've been a secretary at the McKnight School for 8 years now. Prior to that, I was a substitute teacher in district for over 6 years, while my 5 children moved through our amazing school system. I have given countless hours to our district in so many ways, and I wouldn't change any part of it. I'm here this evening to speak on behalf of the secretaries of East Windsor, as we have been working without a contract since July 1st, 2022. School secretaries put the word multitask to the test each day. Every day, our duties revolve around providing support to administration, teachers, counselors, students, parents, transportation, technology, registration, maintenance, custodians, human resources, and that list goes on. We are the first face to greet any person that enters our building. We are the barrier between the front door and our students. From handing out stickers to make a child smile, to budgeting an entire building, the variety of duties are unspeakable. In addition to our rigorous daily routine, we are constantly challenged with new tasks, and we do it without fail each day. All the moving parts of this district funnel through the secretaries, and we deserve a contract to reflect our efforts and our accomplishments. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeannie Drasdick, Krebs Middle School Library Secretary. I'm also here to ask you, please reconsider our raises. Since 2020 with COVID, we have been suffering like everybody else with a lack of money. Everything has been going up but our salary. We have tried our best negotiating, talking, trying our best for you guys to listen to us. Now we're here talking to you in person. Please, with all your heart and your soul, we're doing this because we also need a raise. We need money. Prices are going up. Everything is going up. We're all feeling it. We haven't had a raise in how long? You all know. Please reconsider. Please, let's move forward. Please help us so we can help others. Thank you.
My name is Kimberly Powers. I reside at 153 Old Cranberry Road. Good evening. I'm the current PTO president at Perry L. Drew and the parent of a third grader. I'm here to speak to the value and importance of the support staff that is vital to the success of our schools. As a mother, I can speak firsthand to the importance of our educational assistants. Without the two incredible women who have supported my son Trent through his schooling thus far, I'm confident that he would not have the ability to safely attend school. Trent's EAs have been exceptional, going above and beyond to learn about his disease and find the most meaningful ways to help him thrive both physically and emotionally. I trust them to care for him and his health. They do just this, but they also love him as if he were one of their own. As the PTO president, I've had the privilege of working with several incredibly hardworking custodial staffs. They work day in and day out and are beyond helpful when it comes to supporting our events. We would not be able to put together and offer after-school events without their willingness to set up and break down our visions. The secretarial staff are the literal backbones of our schools. They know each student by name, who their teacher is, what their parents look like. They manage how the kids arrive at school, how they leave, if there's a change in the routine. They answer endless questions from not only parents, but staff and students, and they do it all with a smile. Our schools would literally not run without these incredibly dedicated individuals, and I ask that you please consider settling their contract. Thank you.
Before you start, we need a motion to extend public comment 15 minutes?
I motion to extend public comment 15 minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Randolph Moskowitz.
Excuse me, sir. Could you just remember to sign in, please? Thank you.
Oh,
My name is Randolph Moskowitz. I live at 670 Ithaca Place in East Windsor. I am a bus driver currently at the Transportation Department. In September, we had a kickoff meeting, and you, Mr. Daniels, came down, told us that you appreciated the job that we do, that we are the first adult the children see and the last adult the children see. You talked about the stress that we deal with having a bus full of children, having traffic on the roads, having aggressive drivers, and you seem to have a pretty good understanding of what we go through. Well, there's another stress that we deal with, the stress of making ends meet. Many of my coworkers are working 2 jobs. They are doing extra trips. They're working weekends for the stress of trying to make ends meet. And the holidays, as you know, adds more stress to that. So your words that you appreciate, we appreciate what you said, that you understand us and you appreciate what we do, but now it's time for actions to speak. Actions speak louder than words. We're asking you for a fair contract. We're asking you for a raise. We do a good job for you. We make you look good. It's time to reward us. Thank you.
Good evening, Tara Cesaro, 30 Woodland Drive.
Can you please sign in? Thank you. What was your name again?
Tara Cesaro, 30 Woodland Drive. I'm here to speak regarding the East Windsor support staff and the current lack of contract. I won't stand up here to say I know all about contract negotiations. I don't know anything about that. But I do believe that it's important that these individuals have that contract in place for all they do for our schools. I'd mostly like to speak as the CREPS co-president and all they do for us. So we rely heavily on the custodians to help us with our events, setting up, breaking down, and cleaning up after middle schoolers is never easy. The admins always go above and beyond assisting the PTO, letting us know when parents reach out regarding events. They don't have to contact us. They take the time to do that and give us that courtesy. While the PTO may not work directly with the bus drivers and the educational assistants and maintenance, I do know that they provide a valuable service to our students. I just would like for you to think for a moment that these individuals continue to come to work each day and do their job, and they haven't had a contract for over a year. That must be a crummy feeling to feel that you're not appreciated when you come to work each day. Now, I know that's not the case. I know that's not how anybody feels. But when you meet again to discuss their contract, just think about that for a moment, and hopefully both sides can come to a solid resolution. Thank you.
Good evening.
Can you please sign in?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Maria Mikros. I reside at 7 Rembrandt Way. I have 3 children who have gone through this school district, 2 of which have already graduated college. I'm here tonight not only as a resident, but also as an employee who's worked in this district for the last 11 years. The support staff in our district, which is made up of secretaries, custodians, maintenance workers, educational assistants, bus drivers, computer technicians, and others which fall under these categories, have all been without a contract for the last year and a half. Prior to this contract, we worked without a contract for 2.5 years. Our salaries are frozen throughout this time. It is shameful that we should find ourselves in this situation time and again. It is shameful that we make up such a vital part of this district, and yet we are regarded so very little. Every one of us in this room can agree that we feel undervalued, disrespected, and demoralized by your lack of actions. We are the front line of this district. We are the people who open your buildings in the morning, the first face to welcome the students, the administration, the teachers, and all visitors. We clean the snow in the winter. We cut the grass in the summer. Some of us come in extra hours in the morning to ensure that the unfilled positions are filled due to short staffings. All this is done without any extra compensation. We ensure that there is always extra support available when staff members call in looking for tech support. We are there to clean up after students when they get sick during the day, and we change diapers. We clean up your buildings during school hours and after hours and set up for countless activities that take place during the school year to serve our community. We do this every day of the week on repeat. We are also there to watch students when they are not picked up on time at dismissal or when transportation returns them to school because there's no one at the bus stop for them. We also do that without any compensation. We prepare and make your buildings ready for school in September and keep them safe, clean, and warm all year long. We are all also the same people who you do not seem to regard high enough or important enough for you to negotiate a contract with in a timely and fair manner. We are not asking for anything out of the ordinary. We just want to be recognized for who and what we are, an essential part of your school district, and to be treated fairly and with respect. Thank you.
Good evening. I already signed in. My name is Tanya Copeland. I'm an East Windsor resident, and I'm a parent to 3 current EWRSD students, and I've been employed as a secretary since 2017. As you all know, EWRSD has been working under an expired contract for 1.5 years, and I ask the board to honor the tireless work and commitment of your supportive staff members and accept the most recent proposal introduced by our negotiation team. Our members are approaching their second holiday season without an increase in their paycheck. Like so many others, we are experiencing price increases in every aspect of our lives while our salaries remain frozen. Our previous contract negotiations took nearly 2.5 years, and we do not want to find ourselves in that position again. These protracted negotiations leave our members feeling undervalued, underappreciated, and frustrated. We are often told how important our roles are to keep the schools running so that our students may learn and thrive. We are asked to create joy in our spaces. We are told that each one of us makes a large impact on the lives of our students and fellow employees. Well, I ask you to put your actions behind these words and accept our proposal that is on the table and settle our contract. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Daria Taormina, and I reside at 443 Davidson Mill Road in North Brunswick. I am an educational assistant at the Walter C. Black School. I have been with the East Windsor Regional School District since 2015. My children have also attended the EWRSD schools prior to us moving. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the educational assistants in the district. Currently, as with the other support staff, we are working without a contract since July 2022. We show up each day ready to give it our all to support the children, and in some instances, your very own children, to the best of our ability. Though we may not be certificated staff, we are usually the first staff that the children have interaction with when they are in need. This need I speak of can be a multitude of things, such as a behavior, help with classwork, diapering, or just the simple fact of being supportive, just to name a few. We are being taught to implement strategies by the behaviorists in district to better serve our student population. We are asked to take safety care courses to be certified and trained to keep our students safe without any additional compensation for these certifications. May I also point out that majority of your certificated staff are not asked to become safety care trained. Those of us that do get certified are often put into situations where our own safety is compromised to ensure the safety of the children in crisis and the children within the classroom. We, the EAs, were drawn to this position because of our love to support the students in need of extra attention. We work just as hard as the certificated staff, just in alternate ways. After reading through tonight's staffing agenda, it's very disheartening to see that some kid care positions are making more per hour in a part-time position than the majority of us EAs, who have a more demanding and responsible heavy job. We deserve a contract that reflects our commitment. Thank you for listening.
Good evening. My name is Bob Mitten, and I have worked in the district for over 6 years as a registrar and truancy officer. I am a support staff member. Support staff is the backbone of any school district, and our group is no different. I, along with my colleagues, have worked for the past 1.5 years without a new contract that we so justifiably deserve. Working during the last contract and through the COVID pandemic brought many challenges that support staff met with great passion and determination. We overcame many obstacles, restrictions, accommodations on a daily basis to deliver quality work, essential work, which supported and benefited the entire school district to include all the students and families. I personally went door to door on a daily basis during the COVID pandemic to check on students and families to ensure they were safe, and delivered Wi-Fi hotspots to those that were having difficulty with technology during the remote learning period. I, along with my colleagues, continue to work each day with the same passion and determination to deliver quality work which benefits everyone in the district, all the students, and all the families. The East Windsor Regional School District support staff has worked without a new contract for the past 18 months and deserve a peace of mind that a settled contract brings to them and their families. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? No one?
Okay, so look, I appreciate folks coming out tonight. I'm not going to get into contract negotiation talk in public, but since Kevin indicated that we are close to settling, I will completely agree with that. And I will say on behalf of the board that the board has been more than fair in terms of the proposals that have been put on the table. I don't know the level of detail that the membership have been informed. I hear you talking about percentage increase and so forth, which is completely understandable. But you know, the negotiations process is a compromise, and we have put forth, I think, a fair proposal that benefits all members of the association more than the existing contract. So we're waiting for the association to also meet where the board is so we can settle. I don't want anyone to feel as though they're working on an expired contract for an extended period of time. And obviously I don't, and the board does not want anyone to feel that their role, regardless of what it is not valued. So the bus driver, what is your name again? I can't think of, what's your name? Randy. Randy, you know, you're one of 900 staff members in this district that actually listened to something I said. So thank you for that, Randy. I appreciate that. And I meant that. When I talked to the bus drivers at the beginning of the year, I say that with all sincerity, right? The work that people do, you know, every person's role contributes to the work of the school district. So I realize that people are frustrated. I'm frustrated because I want to settle the contract so folks can focus on what's most important and not feel like this is being prolonged. So what I will say is that I know that the negotiators have been communicating as of today, and I know that they will be scheduled to have some discussion tomorrow. So it would be a goal of everyone to have a memorandum of agreement signed hopefully by the end of 2023, right? That would be still late, but something that I think would make sense as we transition into the new year. So I'll leave it at that, and I did not want to have this meeting or this portion of the meeting, at least with me not acknowledging your frustration, but people are using words like disrespect and demoralize. I mean, that's, people are entitled to their opinion, but that clearly is not the viewpoint of me as a superintendent or any board member here. So, you know, we will continue to be willing to settle as soon as possible. We're ready. So I'll leave it at that, but thank you.
There's no other comments. We're going to be leaving for executive session. It should be a short session, and then we'll be back to vote on items. Thank you.
Paul, should I sign in now? I didn't sign in before.
we good? Okay, we're back. Where are we? Item 8, old business. There's a list of proposed board meeting dates for 2024. If board members can review it, and if you think you may have a conflict with any of the dates, if you could just email Paul in advance. Before the end of December, please. Item 9.
Policies to be abolished. A, Policy 1648.13, school employee vaccination requirements.
Second.
Any questions? Poll the board, please.
Ms. Drake?
Yes.
Ms. Lands?
Yes.
Ms. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Brajoli?
Yes.
Ms. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso?
Yes. Item 10.
Mandated policies for first reading. A, Policy 2423, bilingual and ESL education. B, Policy 2425, emergency virtual or remote instruction program. C, Policy 5200, attendance. D, Policy 8140, student enrollments. E, Policy 8330, student records.
Second.
Any questions? Poll the board, please.
Ms. Drake?
Yes.
Ms. Lands?
Yes.
Ms. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Brajoli?
Yes.
Ms. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso?
Yes. Item 11.
Mandated regulations for first reading. A, Regulation 2425, emergency virtual or remote instruction program. It's a new regulation. B, Regulation 8420.2, bomb threats. C, Regulations 8420.7, lockdown procedures. D, Regulation 8420.10, active shooter. E, Regulation 5200, attendance.
Is there a second? Any questions? Poll the board, please.
Ms. Drake?
Yes.
Ms. Lands?
Yes.
Ms. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Brajoli?
Yes.
Ms. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso?
Yes. Item 12.
Recommended policies for first reading. A, Policy 0152, board officers. B, Policy 0161, call adjournment and cancellation. C, Policy 0162, notice of board meetings.
Second.
Any questions? Poll the board, please.
Ms. Drake?
Yes.
Ms. Lands?
Yes.
Ms. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Brajoli?
Yes.
Ms. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso?
Yes. Item 13. It's me.
That's you,
Sorry.
Madam President.
Sorry. I was like, oh, there's only 2. Second opportunity for board member comments. Are there any board members who wish to make a comment?
I just wanted to say thank you to our chorus and bands this evening with the inclusion of the jazz band. That was a wonderful performance, and I'm always impressed with the caliber of our musicians, so that was wonderful to see. That's it.
Any other board members?
Excuse me, I do have a question. For the presentation that we had earlier, right, for the equity, were the support staff that I guess spoke today, were they surveyed within that?
I have to double check. I'll have to double check. I'll let you know. If out of the support staff would have been the EAs, I'll double check. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board members? There's none. Second opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to make a comment? Being none, we'll move on to item 14.
Motion to approve routine items by exception. Having read the materials received, I move that the board approve the routine agenda items as submitted. A, staffing, 12/11/2023. B, approval of central administration contracts. C, NJ CUSAC DPR approval. D, 2023-24 unaffiliated agreement. E, ARP safe return. F, HIB report from November 20, 2023. G, approved travel and related expenses, virtual and in person. H, approved 2024-25 school calendar. I, approved new field trip sites for upcoming trips. J, approved GNR surplus library books for disposal or donation. K, approved Hightstown High School overnight ski trip. Okemo Mount Snow, Brattleboro, Vermont, March 2024. L, out of district placement, professional services for students. N, surplus property, bumper jack. O, co-op purchases. P, award GNR internal renovations and partial HVAC replacement. Where was I? There we go. S, report of school board secretary and financial report, July. What, did I miss one? I missed something. I'm sorry. Q, approval of board meeting minutes, 10/30/23. R, approval of board meeting minutes, 11/20/23. S, report of the board secretary and financial report, July 2023. T, expense and transfer reports of school monies report for July 2023. U, bill list of December 11, 2023.
Is there a second?
Excuse me, I do have a question. Can I ask, or do I forget?
No one second. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Colleen, second. Any questions?
I have a question for H, the school calendar. It's 3 questions in one. So the first one is for the holiday in October. I see that day, this school year, the professional staff had the day off. But the next school year, not the day off, I'm sorry, they had half a day. But the next school year, they have a professional day on that day. So in essence, I guess they don't have that day or half of a day. Why is that? The second one is the holiday break in December is much longer next year. So with those extra days, does that take away, I guess, any of like the extended breaks that we have for the rest of the school year, like around like Memorial Day, you know how we usually have like an extended period? And then Diwali, we introduced it to the school year this year as a holiday, but next school year it's not considered a holiday. But the following week, we have that whole, the students have that whole week off. Why is that?
Well, we start with October. So October, well, a couple things. One, this year was the first year since I've been in the district that we've had a full professional development day for staff. We scheduled that during that first week of November, that wonky week in November. Actually, we scheduled it on Election Day. I mean, just to be clear. Historically, that October date that you're referring to was an early release day. So we've decided to make that a full professional development day in October. The election, I just call it the Election Day week. Which typically only has at this point 2 school days. It's not the most productive of weeks academically, and it also lends itself for folks to take off that week because they want to take advantage of the school closing days anyway, so it's just not a very productive week. So this calendar creates a fall break during the week of November 4th. We are recognizing Diwali during that week on November 4th because it fits in the range of the Wally. The question regarding, and also there's election day during that week. It's just, and we got NJEA convention. It's just not a very productive week. And also families are inclined to go away during that week, just because there's only 2 school days. In terms of the calendar's built. We have a 180-day requirement. We build into the calendar 183 days. So we build in 3 emergency closings within this calendar. And if we do not need to use them, then we begin to extend the Memorial Day weekend. So that's already within here. So it's determined based on the days that are used or not. That will then indicate whether we need to expand the 3 days. And it could be from 1 to 3 days that we are adding to the Memorial Day weekend. And that will be based, so last school year, we didn't use any emergency closing days, so it stretched out that those 3 days were added to the Memorial Day weekend. All right. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Also with the calendar, maybe not for this year, for 24, 25, but just in the future, and if it could happen this time. The April, it says Easter spring break. You know, Easter's on that Sunday, the 20th. I always found it annoying to have to go back to school the morning after you're celebrating Easter. So if anybody's traveling to see family for that religious holiday, then you're not off Easter Monday. And most people in this district are celebrating Easter now. So if possible, if that can ever be built in later, I think that would be beneficial to a lot of the students, and possibly other, teachers or whoever, I don't know, but the students for sure.
Are there any other questions? Poll the board, please.
Ms. Drake?
Yes.
Ms. Lands?
Yes.
Ms. Murphy?
Yes, abstain from B.
Ms. Bergioli?
Yes.
Ms. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso?
Abstain from A, line 49, and line 62. Yes to the others. We don't have a need for a second executive session. Before we do motion to adjourn, just want to wish everyone a happy and healthy holiday season and a healthy start to 2024. Motion to adjourn.